recording?
Yeah.
Alright, I got limited time. Alright. Now, all for-profit primary and secondary schools are a type of charter school. They're all operated by companies who have one main goal, and that is to make a profit. The first legislation was passed in the state of Minnesota in the year of 1991, allowing for these types of schools to be open. To date, there are a total of 42 states that currently have legislation allowing these schools to be open, and that's according to the National Center of Education Statistics. Can anyone guess the number of requirements it takes to open a charter school?
Zero.
I mean,
I would say 50.
50. Well, if you guess over 2, you're wrong. According to the Florida Department of Education, the 2 requirements that it takes to open a charter school are to have an approved application that includes a list of the curriculum that is being used and student objectives. The last requirement is for you to take a class in business operations and financial planning. However, if you're a large corporation, that requirement is waived.
Mm-hmm.
It actually takes more time to become a gym teacher than it does to open up a charter school.
Wow.
Schools being ran for profit will potentially underserve students, create disparities, and negatively affect students. Although a school should have a main goal of educating students for profit, schools usually have one goal, and that is to create a profit. Jane Addams, who's a writer for EdSource, an organization that champions itself on providing access to quality education for all children, profiled some virtual schools that in California that were being ran for profit. In this school, she found outdated computer equipment, outdated microscopes and lab equipment. She also found high student to teacher ratios. Some classes had 200 students assigned to one teacher. She also noted that there was limited access to special services for disabled students. An example of this is where students who had disabilities requested accommodations and they were never answered back within months for them to be able to have accommodations at the school for their disabilities. Now, all of these cutbacks are done to create a profit since these charter schools receive funding from the states. Now, in addition to doing this, disparities may arise. Disparities may be made intentionally or unintentionally. A philosophy professor for University of Cincinnati conducted research on some of the threats posed by for-profit education. Sarah Steitzlin stated, EMOs for profit corporations whose ability to profit is partially dependent on school success and desirability are even more likely to engage in discriminatory practices because without a profit, their existence rather than their mission is on the line. It is normal business nature to survive. That may mean cutting teachers' jobs or also engaging in practices that may prey on certain groups of students. For example, now allowing certain students from certain neighborhoods to be admitted to the school or not allowing certain students with certain test scores to be admitted to the school. That will create disparity because it's not equal across all planes. For-profit schools may negatively affect students enrolled. Now, a study was completed on 11 charter schools in the state of Michigan by the Institute of Education Sciences. In this study, they found cost-saving strategies led to decreased availability for school, transportation, special education, and diversity. In the transportation issues, parents and students are expected to come up with the funds to pay for schools to have their students bused to the school or either find another way to get them there. Special education, as I addressed earlier with the virtual school, was overlooked in order to cut costs. Also, these schools tended to be less diverse. And this is hurting the students because they're not placed in a diverse environment, and most of our work environments are diverse. If you go to any college, campus is usually diverse. So they're not being granted the same social background on dealing with different types of cultures and different types of people. Everything I have outlined can be added to an extensive list of cons for profit schools. If these schools continue to open, students are in jeopardy of being underserved and risk of disparities and may be negatively affected in their education. Nelson Mandela, the renowned civil rights leader and former president of South Africa, said, "Education is the most powerful tool we can use to change the world." Such a powerful tool is mandatory for all children and students to have access to. It shouldn't be placed in the hands of a business that will choose between cutting costs and benefiting their students.